Yeah, good. Good. You? Oh, yeah. It's true. Okay. Well, let's just carry on without. Yeah.
Have I now got words? Can people hear me? Big Manny, can you confirm? Cameras are...
Yeah, screen's black on mine, yeah.
Good lord. Right, okay, there we go. I think that should now be fixed. Folks, can you see and hear me? I can hear you. Can we be seen? High stakes.
Drum roll.
We probably shouldn't freeze, should we? Because that doesn't look good on the...
I mean, I can see it.
Yeah, that's good. It's not great, though, for a technical test if we're like, can we... I'll try that again. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of System Link. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Mike Hazelton. Now, I know the answer to this question. They've heard it, but they didn't hear me ask it. Mike, how you doing?
Really bad.
Yeah.
It's been a bad day.
It feels like a bit of a shift from earlier.
I'm looking forward to this.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Great start to the stream, as always. Thanks, everyone, tuning in. Tuning in? I'm keeping all of this. I won't edit this for the VOD. Everything's going to stay in. And people will click on it and be like, what the hell are we watching here? What is going on? Everything is fine. Yes, that is a very subjective opinion, Big Manny. So, welcome, everyone. Thank you again for tuning in. Tonight, we've got a few different bits and pieces to cover. Some really... I actually feel like this has been a really strange few days for gaming news. Xbox are on one. They've had a bit of an odd one. We've got some nice PlayStation news to share, and our deep dive tonight is going to be on the Game Award nominations. That's going to be our main focus of this evening. Mike, what were you just jumping in there? You sort of had like an instinctive thought.
Just Xbox has kind of carried on from the last week where we had the no red line thing that we talked about at length, and just carried it on. Probably those interviews were timed, I guess. Based on this marketing campaign, you would think.
Yes, because you'd think a lot of the messaging crossed over, and again, it launched almost like within 48 hours of all that stuff dropping. So it was clearly a planned cycle of their promotion. Let's kick off with that. Xbox released a very bullish, very clear campaign in terms of what their strategy is, referring it to, we've got it here. This is an Xbox. That was the messaging around it, and they showed, obviously, within this clip, you see streaming on a phone, TV, handheld device, console, laptop. Sort of the messaging being is that you can access their platform regardless of where you choose to play. this has been something they've talked about for a long time. We actually heard this several E3s ago, around the time they announced the One X and backwards compatibility. They were talking about the next generation of consoles having a streaming or a cloud focus. So this has been steadily part of Phil's game plan, leading up obviously now to this current gen and where we're at with Xbox. It's not a surprise, I think, to see them double down on the thing that they believe, I think, makes Game Pass viable and sustainable, to go beyond the box. They're looking at the fact that they're in third place. They have to try and diversify their approach because just selling hardware isn't enough. They don't, I don't think, have the software that's the system sellers to draw to bring them in like they once had. With PlayStation, despite their runaway success, they also haven't converted a huge number of PS4 players. We're at about half of what the PS4 sold at this point in the life cycle. So it's an interesting proposition that they now make to us, which is that Xbox is ubiquitous. It is available in various different guises. I mean, you see actually just in the clip there, someone playing with a phone on a controller clip, as well as another format of them accessing it.
Yeah, and it's got the Quest headset as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, it's basically got everything except for a PlayStation, which really would have set people on edge. And to be fair, I saw Digital Foundry's reaction to this, and they were saying, like, they were almost surprised that there wasn't a PlayStation on it. But I think it's a stretch even to say this is an Xbox about these devices, because in my opinion, unless you've got the OS, that is the Xbox experience to me, is having the Xbox operating system. Having the app, the shitty app on Windows, to me isn't as good an experience as playing on a console, which is why you have console gamers. And playing Xbox games on a PlayStation is even another step removed from that. I don't think that, I think it's stretching credibility enough to do this without putting a PlayStation on it.
You mentioned the PC app there. I agree. It's certainly from a usability standpoint, it's not what I would consider to be a premium Xbox experience. I look at that as my Series X, as my console.
I think the problem with the app for me is they try to make it look like the Xbox operating system, and then you try to do stuff that you can do on the Xbox, and nothing. There's no features, and a lot of stuff doesn't work, or is really slow to respond.
Yeah, try joining a party from the PC app. It is fiddly as hell, and it doesn't make any sense as to why they don't have a sort of they went to such great lengths to have that parity between the previous gen and this. When they updated the Dash, the update for the Dash was then applied forward to the new series of consoles, so it meant that anyone that I was upgrading, it was kind of just a smooth transition in theory. Why they then don't have that connect across their other apps, especially with PC, seemingly, whenever I see adverts for Game Pass, it's always for PC Game Pass on social media. That's the one they're pushing.
And that's the other interesting thing about this is Game Pass isn't mentioned. You can see the tiny Game Pass icon on some of the tiles that they have, but you would never pick up on that unless you're, enthusiastic about it. And also we got S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, which came out today, Flight Sim, which came out yesterday, Indiana Jones, which comes out next month, and they've chosen to run a marketing campaign about this instead of. I mean, I'm sure we'll get probably some Indiana Jones ads. You would very much hope, but I haven't seen anything on Flight Sim. Maybe not surprising. Haven't seen anything on S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2,
which is surprising because that's a big third-party get.
Yeah, and they've shat all this money out on this campaign. I've seen it running. I've seen billboards that people have shared for it.
Yeah,
just seems like a weird use of what we understand in Europe is a really limited marketing budget. And also, we'll mention it later, but you couldn't get on Flight Sim yesterday. People are struggling to get on today because of the cloud infrastructure being so bad. And this hinges on cloud infrastructure being able to, say this is an Xbox, this is an Xbox. It's just not ready. I saw Jez Corden's article on this. And he is a big user of the handheld devices, playing his games across Windows and handheld and whatever. And he said it's not ready, and he's like the most uses it daily.
Yeah,
and it's a bad experience in his opinion. If you're like a casual gamer that presumably this ad appeals to, and you go on and try to do it like you try to play Black Ops on your phone or something. as soon as the novelty wears off of, oh shit, I can play Black Ops on my phone, like which it did for me because on launch I had an update for Black Ops, so I played it on the cloud on my Xbox. And you think, oh yeah, this is good. I'm getting kills on Black Ops, and then you look at it, and it looks bad. Like it looks significantly worse, like way worse than playing it natively, which maybe you'd expect, but apparently the fidelity's a lot worse than the PlayStation equivalent, and it's ridiculously worse than like GeForce Now or something. So it's a bit of a surprise to me. Microsoft are supposedly at the forefront of cloud technology as a whole, but I think the Xbox side, xCloud, I think is other than
well, yeah,
latency, which I think it is supposed to be quite good for, but
yes,
visual fidelity, it's bad.
That I can confirm. That was recently play tested for me, and I played Black Ops 6. The latency was impressive. Plugsocket summed it up there in the chat. Big yikes, especially with the timing. Given their focus, so like you said, it hinges so much on cloud infrastructure. You could argue that they're sort of pushing this new boundary beyond where it's actually currently available, where it's actually they're not able to deliver this right now, and yet it's going to be a core pillar of their marketing push. And that to me just seems poorly timed and doesn't read the room as well. I mean, it's not like they're starved for content. We've come off of a really lean year into, I think, a really strong finish across Ara, Black Ops, Flight Sim, Stalker on paper, and Indiana Jones. What's then subsequently happened, I think the big hit really for this actually has been Flight Sim. I think Flight Sim has done a lot of damage to that brand, because that's got to be one of the worst launches that franchise has ever seen.
Well, I mean, Hellblade, very disappointing. Black Ops, probably maybe slightly better than expected. Flight Sim, unplayable currently. No review, not even a single review on Metacritic, because you can't play the game. Stalker 2, which we'll get to, average to unplayable in like pre-release state. Indiana Jones, you'd hope will be good, but like compared to what we were expecting this year, that's awful. But also, it's true to form, sadly, for Microsoft, for Xbox,
and it tracks with their recent, not only their recent release schedule as well, the way the cadence of their releases in terms of how weirdly spread out they've been. I'm not convinced that the current party line of Avowed being delayed simply because the bottom at the end of the year was so busy. I mean, however, having seen the way that Flight Sim has ended up coming out of the gate, quite glad Avowed's been allowed time to cook, because let's make sure that they start 2025 on a positive, and that's going to be their big RPG release for the next year. The big thing for me coming out of this, and I saw a lot of sentiment about this online, is that the marketing isn't syncing with reality. The best place to play one of the most one of the most powerful consoles, leading the charge on cloud infrastructure, they're not putting their money where their mouth is. And that's something that is a fascinating thing when you consider that, yes, you're right, the marketing budget, certainly in Europe, is we know that they've said it publicly, is much more restricted, but I still struggle with that myself. I still can't believe that this organization willing to drop 69 billion on Activision don't then have the money to market their own content. The thing that they've now all openly admitted, there's no red line. We're pushing our content on, if you're an Xbox gamer, if you're buying Sea of Thieves on PlayStation, or if you're downloading it and streaming it on your phone, that you're in their ecosystem. That is what they have decided is going to be their strategy. So you would think that the one thing that would be the priority is setting release schedules and managing teams to ensure they can hit a deadline in a way that these games then don't come out of the gate hobbled and unplayable. That's the part I just can't reconcile, is how, if this was, and it has been, this has been now confirmation that this is truly going to be their strategy, certainly for the foreseeable, unless there's a major change of leadership and approach. How they could not have gotten this right is fascinating, slightly infuriating as well, when you think they were set up with this great platter of titles and experiences. Now, though, the legacy of the end of this year is going to be one of sort of uneven launches and disappointment, which is fascinating.
And the only game so far which has launched without issue and where the marketing has been good is Black Ops, where Activision are basically still handling the marketing and the rollout. You know, I doubt Xbox has been involved much at all
Well,
in the Black Ops
we were talking about
launch.
this before, weren't we, off air, that, you know, Treyarch and Activision at this point, particularly Treyarch, who have such a great track record of strong launches, they are a well-oiled machine at this point. They know exactly how to push these titles and do it in the right way. And that was proven again with how smooth Black Ops 6's launch was. Now, they've hotfixed several things to do with spawning, they've addressed, weapon balance, but they've come in hot with their seasonal update. Sentiment seems to be really positive. It's clearly showing the benefit of that well-oiled machine doing what it does best. By contrast, you look at the concurrent player count for Stalker 2 on PC, it's really strong. Already cleared 100,000 players on launch. And from what I've been reading, I saw Eurogamer mention about why their review isn't live yet. Similar sentiment to what you said before, which is that the day one patch has changed things. The pre-release footage, pre-release copies which were made available quite close to launch, which is not necessarily an indication that they're worried about it, but it probably wasn't ready in the place that they would have liked. There's been a significant, we were covering it, weren't we, on Threads, there's been a significant patch for Stalker that these outlets, I imagine, are trying to now work through to make their review at least reflective of the launch experience. That one definitely is. It seems to have had a really great commercial response. I'm looking forward to the Xbox Guide's chart coverage of that. That's going to be very interesting to see where that lands, particularly in relation to Flight Sim, although especially because they're both on Game Pass. The most played is going to be the interesting stat for that, I think. But despite Stalker 2's slightly uneven, the inconsistency of the review process and also their slightly wonky day one patch that we're still waiting on, seems to have dropped really well and has had decent player count and success. Flight Sim is a big concern for me. That the fact that it's basically, you said, is it inaccessible? Is it truly just unplayable?
I haven't tried it today. I've heard from people that have been unable to play it today. Some people are in now, but and it's a shame because the people that are in are saying it looks considerably better than the last one, which looks amazing in itself. So, and there's a load of new stuff in there. So I think what gets me with Flight Sim is they can literally see how many people have got it pre-installed, so they know basically how many people are going to be trying to play it on day one.
Mm-hmm.
So how the servers, or I don't know if it's servers or I don't know if it's the cloud infrastructure or what that was not up to scratch, but they must have had it. It's like we say about Battlefield games when they launch.
Yeah,
and the servers topple over, and it's like, this is the biggest ever Battlefield launch. We had no way of knowing, and it's like, come on, guys.
You did an enormous free beta months before launch. You would know what the player count's going to be. It's just such a simple metric to track. You look at pre-order numbers, and in this case, preloads, and then you would then estimate and scale up your server capacity. Now, I'm not a technical engineer, but that we've seen Call of Duty, Black Ops. They already know what to expect from their pre-order numbers and the fact that it's going to get a huge boost from it being on Game Pass on PC and console. They knew what to expect. They planned accordingly.
Yeah. I think part of the problem is that there's even more of the game that's streaming from the cloud compared to the last one. So the initial download's really small. And then basically you boot the game up and it downloads everything when you get in. So I think all those people hammering like multiple gigs at the same time is probably what's caused a problem, but I couldn't even log in, so not something you're used to seeing from a first party experience for sure.
No, especially with Xbox with such a great legacy of online, and also Flight Sim itself being a sort of a storied franchise in their history. There have been countless iterations of that.
Well, and again, the number of people that must have been trying to play Black Ops on the cloud when it launched would be quite high. But I guess it's because literally every single person that wanted to play Flight Sim has to use the cloud and has to download high quantities of data. So just on this is an Xbox thing. I think we've been told a few times that Game Pass is it's not the majority of the business for Xbox. So it's still surprising to me that when this sort of campaign goes out that's ostensibly focused on the more casual side, they don't mention Game Pass at all.
Hmm.
In my opinion, it would have been so much stronger to say, even put the price on and say on your Windows PC you can play all these Xbox games right now. You know, whatever. Do a trial or have Black Ops in there. Like if you're not currently playing Black Ops, you wouldn't have watched that video and seen that and thought, oh, I can play Black Ops because it's so small on there.
Yeah.
And the tiny piece of gameplay isn't even like trademark Call of Duty multiplayer. It's like a cutscene from the campaign. Really weird that they've focused on something which, like we said, isn't ready yet. When they've got this amazing product already, which is Game
Well,
Pass,
that's
with playable
yeah.
games that would appeal to people, especially like people with just shitty mobile, shitty Windows PCs, where you can have a average experience playing some of these games on Game Pass.
Yeah. That's the thing that is their unique sell, and it's also the thing that I think is the easiest to sell. It's such an attractive product. Why is it that Microsoft seems so reticent to actually push this thing? It can't be because of the CMA. It can't be because of that litigation.
Yeah, I just think it's yeah. People say Game Pass is confusing, but this is an Xbox is confusing. I think the best case scenario for Microsoft is people will Google this is an Xbox, and then I guess there's a page on the Xbox website which tells you what they're actually trying to communicate, because I don't think it's clear from that. You wouldn't watch that advert and think, "Oh right, I'm going to go on my PC right now and do what?
No, because the
What
way
what
that it
what is it that
becomes
you?"
the way that your PC, phone, or tablet becomes an Xbox is Game Pass Ultimate, and that was not
Pretty
mentioned
much, yeah.
once in the advert. You know, it
Yeah.
becomes an Xbox because of the sub, not because they have a native app that allows you to play these games anywhere. It's actually because you have a subscription service that's either through the cloud, through the browser, depending on the device, or you have the Game Pass app on PC. So, again, ties it back to that subscription service. That needs to be the focus.
It's interesting timing as well, because I saw that from today, possibly you can play some of your digital library over
Mm,
cloud, even if it's not a Game Pass game, which is a sensible thing. Only a limited number of games at the moment, but again, that's kind of a route where you could just go on the Xbox website or the Xbox app and buy a game and play it on your PC over cloud
mm.
if your PC's shit. Um, but again, that's complicated to try to communicate to people, whereas the Game Pass angle is reasonably straightforward. But I've literally never seen them say whatever the price is now, 16.99, 500 plus games. I've just not seen that ever
Yeah.
communicated, and that's simple, a simple thing to get
And a
across.
yeah, and a very easy value proposition for people to get on board with, I think, as well. That's the
Yeah.
thing that is so surprising. We've seen it find success. I mean, their subscriber count's really, really good. Still a long way to go, but without that major push, that's not going to grow. So switching gears now, we've obviously got a couple of PlayStation bits of news. There's rumors circling right now that PlayStation are keen to acquire Kadokawa, who are the team behind Elden Ring, correct? Or is it
They I think the majority own From Software. I think
from
Sony
FromSoft?
also possibly have shares in From Software, but if they acquired Kadokawa, then they'd own From Software
Yeah,
basically. I
that
think.
makes so much sense for them to acquire them. That is and you know the I do enjoy sometimes seeing some of the console war baiting where they'll say like, well, Sony organically grow their studios, and you're like, they've spent a significant amount of time in recent years just doing what Microsoft have done, buying them, and then either not managing them correctly or closing them. So
Yeah,
slow your
like
roll on that. We can't all be Naughty Dog, right?
from a console war perspective, it would be so good if Sony acquired From Software and then all the games were exclusive from then on,
Yeah,
because it would just be such a different strategy to what Xbox is doing, and Xbox being all like, oh, basically any games that used to be third party will carry on being third party, but Sony aren't going to give a shit about
no, of course not.
Elden Ring 2 let's give it to Xbox. They're not going to care about that. Elden Ring 2, they would do everything they
Well,
can
no,
to have that exclusive on PS5.
They went to great pains to make sure that Lego Horizon was on PlayStation, PC, and Switch. So that there was very, very clear choice there to not publish on Xbox. So yeah, because why do they need to? There's no benefit to them, and there's huge benefits to Xbox doing it because they don't have the market share and they need the revenue. So it makes sense for them to do that.
There won't be a competitiveness issue. One studio, they don't release that many games. They just happen to all be amazing.
Well, I don't see that generally, fundamentally as any particular issue. The idea of them having ultimately a very different strategy makes it more viable and more sensible to consider owning both because they're not just carbon copies of each other. The difference between PlayStation strategy and Xbox strategy is widening, and I think that is a healthy thing for the industry to not only foster competition but encourage them regardless of sales figures and where they kind of rank in a market share. It encourages them both to continue innovating. We've seen enough eras of all of these platforms where they've either been complacent, Xbox One, poorly priced and bad messaging, PS3. We've seen enough sort of, complacency and poor messaging around their big launches and both their first party and their consoles themselves that, any kind of competition I think is healthy. So please, I want to see them do that. If a bullish move from Sony, I think would be really exciting and show again that they sort of putting the hammer down. They're saying this is why you should invest in PlayStation. This is why we call it the best place to play, is because we've got these franchises you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, the interesting thing for me would be whether they go to PC.
Yes.
Like I would imagine they wouldn't put them on Xbox, but I don't know. Times have changed, but it would be PC that would be the interesting one because PC gamers would be pretty pissed if none of those games come to PC. But I don't know. I mean, generally the strategy has been multiplayer only like day one to PC from PlayStation.
Well, yeah, and within this conversation, I think it's important that we separate personal preference from the business decision making. I don't particularly care where I play my games, so whatever, because I tend to buy the hardware and then I cherry pick which titles I want. So that for me, as a gamer that isn't sort of platform specific, that doesn't affect me in any way. Exclusives don't really matter in my world. I know for Nintendo it is the bedrock of their IP and their success is the exclusivity of that. And PlayStation strategy, which has always traditionally been console first, we've now seen that relax with sort of single player titles then making their way there a year, 2 years after launch with simultaneous multiplayer releases. That's a nice way, I think, of handling that. Xbox are going all in. It's an open platform, essentially, now. So that we are seeing a spectrum of approach with these three major platform holders. And that is interesting, certainly from a podcast, news coverage, console war perspective. It's an interesting thing to be able to compare. But it fundamentally makes it more, in some ways, more challenging for the consumer because then they have to pick a lane. And it also means that if you do plan on getting a secondary console and having two, there's an easier justification to do that because they are now more varied in their approach, and that's an okay thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, other than I don't know, in terms of ranking, kind of excluding Nintendo, the biggest, most important studios you could acquire in terms of forcing people to your platform. If you could make them exclusive, I think, you'd have Rockstar, then you'd probably have Activision, and then you'd have EA, and then you could argue that you'd have From Software. I think in terms of the pool that they would have, and you can't I don't think you could get away with making Activision games or EA games exclusive or Rockstar. Tricky. I don't know what the CMA would have to say about that because it's such a big deal, but. From Software, they're not going to bat an eyelid, and they look like PlayStation games, and they play like PlayStation games. They don't. You look at them and you don't think, oh yeah, that's an Xbox game.
Totally.
There's a reason.
And actually,
a couple of their games have been exclusive. To PlayStation already.
And on that line of thinking, I look at something like 2K, some of their sports franchises. If you suddenly bought 2K games, where you think how big of an umbrella that publisher actually is and what they cover, you suddenly start making like the NBA 2K games PlayStation exclusive. You know, a bit like how MLB up until very recently was also only on one platform. Sports games maybe not a fair comparison because I suppose they traditionally you want that multi-platform release, but you suddenly sort of make a Borderlands game that's PlayStation exclusive because they own Gearbox now. Suddenly that does, you know, encourage people on. You know, it's content is king always. We've seen that in the streaming wars across Netflix, Prime, you know, Apple TV. All these major streaming services are vying for people's subscriptions with exclusivity.
Yeah, and I think PlayStation can afford to be a bit more bullish because of the install base. Like it's still, we understand it's still not enough for them to necessarily make the amount of money they want to make from some of their titles. But I also think From Software would be quite an economical studio in terms of the cost versus the return of their games. Like I think you could legitimately have their next game, make it exclusive to PlayStation, and it would make its money back.
Easily.
And then you release it on PC in a couple of years
for a second wind.
Boost that a bit further. I don't think
get it into PlayStation Plus Extra Premium within 6 months.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Giving that, you know, there's a real roadmap for that. Xbox have to open the floodgates because their approach isn't moving the needle enough in a way that then reframes their narrative.
And then, but we said this last week. It's not moving the needle because the whatever it is 4 or 5 games that we've been promised this year, they've all been shit. Or like below expectation. You're not going to buy an Xbox for Hellblade, which is disappointing.
Yeah, and also I suppose Flight Sim could have been on PlayStation and Switch, and we would have still had server issues. So in fact, if they'd have been compounded, could you imagine a multi-platform release of a game like that? You know, it's not ready.
Yeah, and Flight Sim is a perfect cloud game because most of it is cloud already. Latency is not an issue, so the you might as well be playing it on a Windows PC or on your phone or on a Switch via cloud because it's on the cloud anyway. It's not it's barely a native Xbox game. I'd love to see how much of it's actually running off the Xbox hardware.
Yeah, which in itself is impressive if they can get the server working. You know, that it's conceptually
it is impressive, but then it is impressive, but then you also have to ask, like, almost what's the point?
Right. Well, it's impressive, but unproven.
Being an Xbox game. It's a bit of a weird one.
It is strange.
I wonder if we'll see any other games doing that.
Well, on the sort of the topic of cloud streaming, we got a little update today, and actually quite a smart move given Xbox's campaign, and now what we've seen from Flight Sim.
Timing.
Very reactive timing. I reckon they would have had it ready, and then they've now pushed it. PS Portal, their remote play device for PS5, has now been updated to support their beta for cloud streaming. Very good timing for them, and again, a very sort of Sony, quite bullish move. I think it has now massively increased the value proposition of that device. I never was even vaguely interested in it until this, because it was literally just stream your PS5 games to it. That was it. That was the only thing you could do with it. The fact that you could now take it, connect anywhere, and stream, at the moment it's 50 games in the beta. Very, very smart. They've now got themselves a PlayStation handheld, essentially, now, without needing a console to go with it.
Yeah, and I think the Xbox community definitely want a native handheld as opposed, because you can basically do this on your phone already. You don't need a separate piece of kit, but having this, I think there's starting to be fewer and fewer points of differentiation. We talked about the games being a point of differentiation, which is absolutely true, but the features that Microsoft used to have, well, like we've got Game Pass, we've got cloud streaming, we've got Play Anywhere, and whatever, smart delivery. Those are slowly being eroded, and I think it's a tactic by PlayStation to, as they often have done, they cherry pick the best bits of Nintendo as well, and kind of throw away the stuff that doesn't work, and they innovate their own stuff like the controller. And like what is it now? Because Xbox doesn't have the games. What does Xbox have? It's Game Pass, and that's it. That literally is all they have. Because the cloud streaming isn't good enough, other than from a latency perspective. Soon, in the next couple of years, I expect PlayStation will probably let you do cloud streaming, maybe even off Portal somewhere. on PC or something, maybe even.
Maybe even through their app,
Um,
like doing it through like the phone app, maybe.
exactly. Yeah. And then what's Xbox going to have? They're in some danger. PlayStation are being really smart.
Mm,
And we've said before, in a year where their lineup's been quite on the surface been quite poor, they're like dominating again.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, also
which is
then
pretty
the
impressive.
majority of their key titles have delivered when they have had a release.
Yeah.
Lego Horizon has had quite a soft response, but Astrobot was like the critical response and commercial response has been really strong. Hellblade was an absolute runaway success. Not Hellblade, sorry. Helldivers 2 was an
Stellar
absolute
Blade.
runaway
Oh,
success. Just
Stellar
Stellar
Blade was
Blade.
good as well. I thought you were
Yeah,
mixing the
I
two.
conflated. But yeah, so that it just shows again that how smartly they're reacting, and also it does. We've seen those reports, haven't we? That their live service approach, because let's not forget Concord was an abject failure, and we've seen those reports that there has been an internal pivot back towards what they know traditionally to be their success, which is single player titles, which makes total sense for them to do. That the thing you mentioned about the handheld and them opening that up and being reactive, and also features that now obviously are there's less uniqueness on Xbox's side as a result of the PlayStation kind of chipping away at that. Something again that I wish Microsoft would talk more about is another thing we haven't. I think you mentioned it earlier, but we didn't mention it just here. Was Xbox Play Anywhere? That is still very much a thing, and a lot of games, new titles, support it. I went and bought 2 Point Campus the other day. It was like £6 on Xbox, and it's Xbox Play Anywhere. And I'd much rather play it with a mouse and keyboard. It was £25 on the Xbox Store on PC, but the Xbox Store on console was having a discount. It was having a sale on it. I've got that now. I've got the PC version. Fantastic. But they don't talk about how brilliant a deal that is, or smart delivery being the thing that especially for cross-gen games, you then got the Xbox One and Series X version automatically. That is a huge point of difference. PlayStation don't have an Xbox Play Anywhere equivalent. If you want to play Ghost of Tsushima on PC and you already had it on PlayStation, you're buying it twice. So,
And the quick resume is well, in theory, better on Xbox because you can have multiple games, quick resuming. But none of this stuff is some of it I understand is tricky to communicate to casual consumers, but like they haven't even tried. They don't even try. They
that's
don't
the
even try
problem.
to communicate Game Pass. So it's like really, it's not a surprise at all that they're not selling consoles, is it? Because
Certainly when
why would you? If
yeah.
you don't have an Xbox currently, there's no way you would buy an Xbox now. There's
No,
just
you're not communicating the value of those things, but also the things that you should be communicating, those niceties, they then also arguably aren't enough to then move the needle because you're not having software that launches consistently enough to back up those nice features. Nobody's buying an Xbox because it has quick resume, but you should be buying Xbox because Halo is an absolute banger, and that hasn't happened, and we've seen that time and again with first-party games either launching in a bad state, Redfall, missing the mark, Hellblade, being unplayable with server access, Flight Sim, too long a gap between releases. Hellblade was back in May this year, right? And then the next major release
yeah.
was
I think,
then October with Black Ops.
and it makes me wonder if that is why the marketing hasn't been there. It wasn't there for Hellblade. Wasn't there for. We haven't seen anything for Flight Sim. Nothing for Stalker. Is it because they knew they were going to do badly? Like Redfall didn't have any marketing either. Um, I mean, I guess Starfield didn't see much, to
I
be
remember
honest,
seeing
but
some stuff
it
like
had a little bit.
it's funny. I always when I rarely end up finding myself going to the cinema, I often use that as the judge. If I see a game
Yeah,
advert
it's
at the
fair.
cinema, because that's a very expensive ad to take out. All the time I'd go there and I'd see like God of War, Ragnarok. I
Yeah,
always sort of see like
totally.
stuff for that on the big screen too, which obviously looked fantastic. If it was Xbox, it was a third-party game that they had their marketing rights for.
Well, yeah, I a flight sim ad on that screen, like flying over
On
London
IMAX,
or something. People would be blown away by that.
yeah. And it says play it day
Whether
one on
whether
Game Pass at the end.
exactly whether you like flight, I don't like flight simulator games, but I'm 100% I want to play it because I want to because it just looks insanely good and
Yeah.
I think I'll enjoy doing some of the missions and stuff on like relatively arcadey controls. Um, and I think everyone would be up for that.
Let's just while we're getting on to our final sort of news item before we get to our deep dive, just in the chat, if anyone can share or happy to share, what is the thing that Nintendo, PlayStation, or Xbox have to do next gen to get you to pre-order their console? So in chat right now, what is the thing? We'll circle back. So have a think, stick the reply in if you get a chance. What is the thing that PlayStation, Nintendo, or Xbox have to do? That point of differentiation. We talked about how the consoles are having wildly different strategies, but their individual feature sets aren't necessarily now as unique as they once were, even if their overall approach as a platform holder is very different. What have they got to do to get you? We did a system a couple of weeks ago.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I said on Nintendo, like, there's nothing they can do, which makes for a fairly poor quality conversation. But
if Shigeru Miyamoto himself lit a Joy-Con on fire in front of you, personally, still not enough. Still not enough to get you to pre-order.
I can't even remember what I said. It would have to be like 200 quid or less, which is just so Switch 1 isn't that price. But that's how cheap it would have to be for me to get it.
GameCube Virtual Console?
No.
It's not enough. That would get me so easy.
I've got a GameCube. I just play the GameCube.
Yeah, I know. Waiting for it to my one to catch fire and stop working. I found a company the other day, complete segue. I found a company the other day that does those like retro console repairs and upgrades. So they maintain obviously the functionality, but the innards are swapped out for something modern. And I know that that's something I'm going to want to do with my N64 and my GameCube for sure.
Well, the N64. There's a couple of N64 ones you can get, which are pretty cool, aren't they?
Totally.
I guess you'll buy all three. Don't even need to discuss that, presumably.
They've got me. They've got me hook, line, and sinker. They've got me.
Well, maybe we need to. I think we did this on Nintendo. Was there anything they could do that would put you off? Maybe we need to do that at some point. But PlayStation is an interesting one. If there was a on PS5, if they released a cheap enough SKU, I would definitely be interested.
Cool.
I can't see there being a cheap enough PS6, but it's all price motivated for me. Even possibly the next Xbox, because the leap was so small from Xbox One to Series X, and the launch lineup was so bad. A lot of games were cross-gen. We were playing the Series X together, like for the first few months after launch, and it was like I could just be doing this on Xbox One. And I had a base Xbox One.
Any of the stuff that was exclusive was cloud enabled, which you could then stream in.
Literally, the only nice thing, the only thing I noticed with Series X was it was so fast to load games and stuff, and quick resume and stuff. But
I've definitely had some games, funnily enough, mainly third-party ones. I've had some games now that I feel like just wouldn't have been possible last gen. So like the Finals immediately springs to mind. I look at that game and I just think that the way they've used Unreal Engine 5, I think is amazing. That felt like a really next-gen experience for me because it wasn't just pushing visuals, it was pushing design. And that's always what I wanted. I said coming into this gen, it was two things that was going to be the thing that I wanted that was going to be my focus. The one was new IP. So I look at something like It Takes Two, and I know that was cross-gen, so it's not like a power argument, but I look at that as such a magical experience. I associate that with this gen. And also games like the Finals. Pushing the tech, that's always been the thing that for this gen was what I was hoping for. And for so long, if you just took Xbox first party as the metric for that success, we didn't see the kinds of design experiences being pushed, the technical boundaries obviously being pushed as well. We didn't see it. Which is frustrating. Certainly as an owner of all of them. Big Manny in the chat saying I'm really very unlikely to get any next gen consoles for a while after they're out. They'd have to promise some pretty exciting games to make me pre-order. Yeah, you got it. If you Nintendo had Breath of the Wild and Just Dance, and that was enough. They had 2 games on the Switch launch, and that was enough. Oh, and Snipper Clips.
Fast RMX.
Oh, Fast RMX! Shit, they had 4 games. But my point being is they had their one first-party title that was like their big release. And,
but it's they were fortunate because the Wii U was such a shit show. But normally, like Big Manny says, I think you have to be bold and you have to have exclusive launch titles.
Mm.
You have to accept that you're going to sell less initially and make them exclusive to get people to go across. And I don't think any of the platform holders are confident enough to do that now. Return on investment is so important that they want to look after the base of the previous console.
Totally. Especially with the ballooning costs as well. That margin's getting thinner. So they need to make sure they've got that return.
Yeah. And you would literally just be making it exclusive for the sake of forcing people to buy your console, because they'll all be playable on, because they're just PCs. They'll all be playable, you know,
yeah,
at least for the first year or 6 months, like Xbox said, and everyone reacted really badly because they weren't forcing people into next gen, and people for some reason saw that as a negative. The technology is just there to make them work on cross gen, so why would you limit it? But it does mean there's very little reason to upgrade unless you're a real technophile.
Totally. Yeah, well, take the PS5 Pro. The reason, it's a complete, it's an unnecessary product. It's certainly not a necessity by any stretch. It's a nicety for sure, but it also shows PlayStation. I think actually in some ways, then putting the cloud streaming on PlayStation Portal and PS5 Pro as a concept shows PlayStation looking after that hardcore fan base that are going to come with them. They're not opening up that's not encouraging people to jump from 4 to 5. It's looking after the people that are already in, that have got PSVR 2 as well, and that they do all of that. They do look after their ecosystem. That much you can say, but without question. Them putting their titles on PC now, having a bit more flexibility with PS Plus, it's a very smart way, I think, for them to try and encourage that install base to grow. But the numbers don't lie, right? We've seen that PS4 players haven't all jumped to PS5 in droves.
Yeah, and PS Plus, we were saying, or I was saying, the only point of differentiation is Game Pass, and it's PS Plus, you know. So all you get, the only difference is Ultimate, because you get day one games.
You get day one and cloud.
And if the day one games are shit, then that's you're going to get cloud with PS Plus eventually. And I've been doing this analysis of Game Pass versus PS Plus, and it's pretty close,
Or in terms of when you've done your comparisons before of
in terms of
Metacritic,
number of games, quality of game, age of game,
value.
Considering the perception is Game Pass is the best value, whatever, and I think all of that is on day one games that people are talking about, the value proposition.
That does tie in with our that ties in with our content is king argument, doesn't it? Which is that if the games day one are shit, then coming out day one as part of your sub isn't a benefit.
Well, and they're massively dialing back the Game Pass releases this year. There's far fewer, and we've talked about them using the standard tier as a way to kind of mask the reduction in Game Pass titles. If their whole Game Pass library is really hinging on first party, and the first party output's bad, then Game Pass becomes bad, because they're not getting these big third party deals anymore. So they need to really be careful, because that literally Game Pass is all they've got.
Yeah, and it's the central pillar of their strategy. It's no question that's the thing they're focusing on. There was one other little headline I wanted to cover. Remedy gave an update. I do love how explicit they are in terms of their company.
We talk about Remedy almost every week. They're doing a good job of staying in the news, aren't they?
And staying relevant, and it's lovely to see off the back of their recent financial report that Alan Wake has almost sort of made its money back from its costs, but has now sold 1.8 million copies, over 1.8 million, so it's creeping up on the 2 million mark. I would imagine if FBC Firebreak does well on Game Pass and PS Plus, we could see Alan Wake 2 drop in there. Control Ultimate Edition's already been in there as well. We've talked about that before. There is precedent for them adding that in there, so that might give that a little boost, get them into profitability. But just shows that there was still a hunger for that, and that the Remedy Connected Universe is looking healthy and doing well. Control 2 confirmed to be an action RPG as well, which is really, really cool. Just exactly what you'd expect from them, which is exciting. Just more power to them. They've got multiple irons in the fire. They've got their funding now from Annapurna. and it just seems like, and they've got a physical release for Alan Wake 2. The DLC obviously was great as well. They're firing on all cylinders. Max Payne 1 and 2 remakes are in development. FBC Firebreak, Control 2. They're a busy studio, and more power to them. Really excited to see them find success.
How much of Control 1 had RPG elements? Because it sounds like, well, from what I've read, they're going more RPG for
Yeah,
Control
definitely.
2.
I think that the Metroidvania elements kind of took over more in terms of like the way you move through the world and the sort of a lot of the design to it, especially with unlocking abilities. But there was actually, you had resources and you had to choose how to spend them, and that would lead to certain upgrade trees and stuff. So there was elements of that for sure, more so I think than perhaps the marketing material would suggest. It was a little bit more.
Would you have called it an action RPG?
No, but I think it would be. You could sort of more accurately call it like an action game with RPG elements. I don't think it was an action RPG by genre. Seems like they're really doubling down on that though. They've been again very explicit in their update there. So just whatever you got, Remedy. We'll be waiting. I'll be ready to go. You've got Firebreak next year. Probably, I would imagine, Max Payne remakes and maybe Control 2 following in 26. They have said they want to up their release cadence, and that does track with the last couple of years. Alan Wake 2 in 23, and obviously the DLC for that in 24. Firebreak in 25, and likely, I would imagine, Max Payne 1 and 2 remake in 26. Not quite sure how far off Control 2 is, but they are now in production on it, so it's possible we could see that in 26 as well, maybe as a cross-gen release. So big main topic of tonight, our headline, is the Game Awards 2024, coming up obviously next month. That's going to be here before you know it. I always look forward to the Game Awards. I do think it is, unlike the DICE Awards, which feels very much for the industry people, Game Awards feels like the MTV Awards. It's that sort of, big, splashy, mainstream attempt to push through in that space. And we've just had our nominations announced for the Game Awards. A bit of a mixed bag for me this year. I feel like last year, however it all turned out, I felt like the nominations made sense, predominantly. And there's definitely a few in here, certainly for Game of the Year. I know we'll save it, we'll get there. But there was a few in here that I kind of looked at that were a bit, unusual, or certainly some things I thought would be popping up but didn't. So, Mike, have you got the list in front of you? Are you ready to go?
Yeah, so we were going to go through the kind of the key categories. Some of them we'll skip through faster than others, but so starting with most anticipated game, we've got Death Stranding 2, Ghost of Yotei, Grand Theft Auto 6, Metroid Prime 4, Monster Hunter Wilds. I mean, I think it would be hard, in my opinion, to argue with Grand Theft Auto 6, but Monster Hunter Wilds has got. I know a lot of people really enthusiastic. If you're a Nintendo fan, Metroid Prime 4. I think the couple of PlayStation ones on there will struggle. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
I think, because I didn't realize it was called that, Death Stranding 2 on the Beach is a terrible name. And I hope it doesn't win this because of that terrible name. Ghost of Yotei, I think, actually could be an upset there, because that has such a fervent following. I do think ultimately it's going to be Grand Theft Auto, but could be an upset there, maybe just something like that. That would be one that really stood out. Was like, oh, that does make sense. I don't know how much hype there is actually for Metroid Prime 4. I think it's obviously people.
It's been so long now.
I feel like
it's starting to wane a bit.
And I gotta think it's cross-gen now as well. That's gotta be Switch 2, isn't it?
It didn't look that. We talked about this when they showed the gameplay of it. It didn't look that great. So I think it's graphically. So I think it's got to be cross-gen.
Yeah.
They can do some wonders with the Switch. So.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And the GameCube ones. I mean, they still look amazing, and it's all art style. Right, what's next?
Best adaptation: Arcane, Fallout, Knuckles, Like a Dragon, Yakuza, Tomb Raider, The Legend of Lara Croft. I've only seen Fallout, so I can't comment on the others. Have you?
I've seen Knuckles. Knuckles is big dumb fun, but I think Fallout should get it. Fallout is one on my endless backlog that I really.
It cut through Fallout. I mean, if you're saying that the Game Awards is mainstream, then you have to say Grand Theft Auto 6. If people, the public, are actually voting and not just hardcore gamers, Grand Theft Auto 6 has to get most anticipated. Fallout probably has to get best adaptation because it was, BBC News and places were covering it, because it was going down so well.
I know that Tomb Raider has been very well received, though, so I think that could, in terms of just purely from voting, I think either
Is that
Fallout
a series or a one-off?
Yes, it's a series.
Oh, cool.
I think Tomb Raider and Fallout would be the ones to beat in that one. I think that would be where they land with that.
You haven't watched Tomb Raider?
No, I haven't. No, and I think again, it's just endless backlog. I know I get stuff about 3 years late. So current with my console purchases, but TV and dude, I've only just started watching Next Generation from the beginning. I started tonight. Encounter at Farpoint Part 1.
Oh, nice.
Watched it this evening with my stepdaughter, who actually I asked her, like, we just finished Enterprise, starting Enterprise, and we were like, what do you want to do next? And she went, Next Generation. So we've kicked into that, and it was great. It was so wonky and so 80s, and we loved it. So I'm massively behind. I'm a terrible Star Trek fan. I have never watched TNG all the way through, so this is my first time doing that. So I'm massively behind on TV shows and movies. So I'll get there probably 3 years from now. Yeah.
Next, best multiplayer game.
I'm gonna say straight away Helldivers 2.
Jesus. Okay.
Chance. Coming in hot.
It's not even on the list.
Yes, it is.
It is. I know. I'm joking.
What are you doing? I panicked. I started scrolling over here.
So we've got Black Ops 6, Helldivers 2, Super Mario Party Jamboree, Tekken 8, Space Marine 2. Now, I mean, it's got to be between Helldivers and Black Ops.
Yes, I think it's Helldivers. Space Marine's single-player campaign and its co-op mode is fantastic. The multiplayer is wet salmon. So Helldivers 2, any day.
I think it's a shame Space Marine hasn't had more nominations. I mean, I
agree.
We'll get to that, but
yeah.
Best sports game. It's a bit wet, but we'll go for it. F1 24, EA Sports, FIFA 25, NBA 2K25, Top Spin 2K25, WWE 2K24. There's a bit of a trend here.
My God, yeah, three
God
2K
knows on
titles
that.
in there. Was Top Spin well received? It's been a minute since that title.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Like it was fun. We played it on free play days.
I think we didn't we? Had a quick cheeky peek.
I haven't seen it. I'd be surprised if it's many people playing it. I haven't seen much on F1 24 either, so I feel like I don't know how well WWE and NBA have gone down lately.
Going to clinch it. I think it is it is a mammoth, and they've got no competition. They have a complete dominance in that space. There isn't anything meaningful that goes against them. So I think NBA in that case.
Best strategy game: Age of Mythology, Frostpunk 2, Kinetzugami, Mana Lords, Unicorn Overlord. This will be a tough one. Frostpunk 2 reviewed really, really well.
Yeah, I was actually that was going to be
like a.
Yeah, that was going to be the one that I go for with that. I think Frostpunk 2 will clinch that. I think from what I've seen, the footage looked really cool. I've not played it, but it looked really, really good.
It's tough. I don't know anything about Yakuza. Unicorn Overlord. Mana Lords, though, got a lot of hype and a lot of coverage. So I'm going to go Kinetzugami because I played it. Age of Mythology, I had some issues with glitches and things. So it'll be interesting. Best family game, Astrobot. You have to think if it's going to win anything.
It's going to go there.
I mean, we'll get to it. We'll get to it, but we'll get to Game of the Year. But Princess Peach Showtime, I have no idea. Super Mario Party Jamboree, The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom, and The Plucky Squire. Interested to get your thoughts on this. I haven't played any of these.
I have some recency bias because I've been playing The Plucky Squire to review it, and it is so charming. So I've definitely some recency bias there. I think that would be given that that's the one that stands out, it's the one I've played from this list. That would be what I would go to. It's what I know.
What sort of game is that?
It is
obviously it's a family game, but what
it is?
What genre?
Yeah, it's a platformer. It's a blend of 2D and 3D. So its central premise is that you play sort of a 2D storybook. You're kind of working your way through 2D levels, and then at certain key points you pop out into a 3D space and are navigating that world as a 3D character. It's really, really lovely. Very Devolver, very sort of slightly unhinged, slightly offbeat.
Yeah.
interpretation of a platformer, but really, really good fun. And I've been enjoying my time with that very much. I think Zelda or Astrobot are likely to clinch it because of franchise recognizability and Astrobot's undeniable review scores and critical
Yeah,
response. So, yeah.
I don't really think Zelda should be getting a family game award. I know that Echoes of Wisdom is a more casual, more family game, but I can see the others be like Astrobot, especially Astrobot, Princess Peach, Mario Party. Yeah, I haven't played Plucky Squire, but I don't know. Zelda seems like a bit of an odd one out. Like, just tried to shoehorn it into a category to me, but don't know. Fighting games, I think we should probably skip because we're not experts in the genre, but happy to go through them if you would like
No, I
to.
think your instinct's correct on that.
Best RPG: Dragon's Dogma 2, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Metaphor, ReFantasio. This will be interesting. There's been a lot of pushback about Elden Ring DLC being included, especially in Game of the Year, and I think that's basically all valid. It'll be interesting to see how many people vote for it. Based on that, I would go for Metaphor just because it's the one
And it's
I've played.
one you're familiar with. I think because I remember seeing it just took over social media, gaming Twitter when I was on there. Dragon's Dogma 2, I think, is going to clinch this one.
Yeah, and I want to play. It's really I'm having a tough time because I've got Elden Ring, I've got Dragon's Dogma 2, and Dragon Age all like vying for a purchase over Christmas. So and it's been a really really good year for RPGs. Is Dragon Age too late? It's a bit weird. It's not in there, or
The Veil God.
yeah.
I think it's too late.
I thought
think.
Stalker was up for
Oh,
consideration.
actually, Black
Maybe not.
Ops. Black Ops isn't it? Oh
I don't
no,
know.
no, it was November. Dragon Age was November, so no, I think that's too late. I think the cutoff is October. I think.
Okay.
Don't
Mind you,
don't quote me on that.
I mean, Metaphor released very close to Dragon Age as well.
Yeah, okay. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's. I wonder if that's in their FAQ.
Yeah, well, try and find out when the cutoff is.
Live fact check.
Yeah,
So
I was trying to see if it's in any of the categories. It'd be weird for it not to be in any. No, it is. It is this in innovation and in innovation in accessibility.
what
So
is?
it is Dragon Age. So
Oh,
it's just not in the RPG category, which is
that's odd. Then that
it
is
is
odd.
odd. I mean, I don't know what you drop though. I haven't played Infinite Wealth, but I've heard good things. I think Final Fantasy has to be in there. So unless you make the bold and sensible decision to make a DLC category and get rid of Shadow of the Erdtree from the RPG one, I guess. Were these nomination people nominated these, or are they picked by developers? Do you know?
They're picked by
Or
the panel, aren't they? The panel, I
are they
believe,
Jeff?
and then it's the awards, and then yeah, and then Jeff in a room by himself, and then it's voted on by
Public vote
the
on?
public.
Yeah.
For the winner.
Okay. But yeah, that's a surprise to me. Best action adventure game: Astrobot, Prince of Persia, Silent Hill 2, Star Wars Outlaws, Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. This is a tricky one.
I think there's some strange
Um,
nominations in here. I don't know why Astrobot's in there. I think Silent Hill 2 being an action adventure, that doesn't really
I mean, is
click
there
for me.
what would you call it if there's not a horror
Yeah, which is odd that
genre?
there isn't one. That's the problem, isn't it? I think it's the
I mean, I
adventure
don't know for
part. I
sure,
just
but
think it's just
yeah.
really strange.
And then they've got the next category is best action game, so
yeah,
a bit weird. Um,
yeah.
it's a tough one to pick, to be fair. Like, I don't know. Even based on like critical reception, I think it's quite a tricky because Astrobot just feels wrong to me to give it best action adventure game. But people may just be voting Astrobot in every category that it's up for because it's some people's game of the year. I mean, honestly, I would like Outlaws to get it just because it had a rough time, and I don't think it was necessarily fair. But Silent Hill 2 went down so well. If that's the only category Silent Hill 2's up for, maybe Maybe it deserves that. What do you think? What
Yeah,
would you go for?
this is a really tricky one because, like you say, it's sort of, if you look at Outlaws and the way it was kind of the reception was quite soft for it. I don't think Astrobot clicks with that. What are the other three nominations?
Um, Prince of Persia, Silent Hill 2, Star Wars Outlaws, Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom.
I think Zelda will get it, but I wish it was Prince of Persia. I've played that now, and it's so good. And that to me is an action adventure game. That clicks within that category really sensibly for me. So,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
That was a tough one. This one is even tougher. Black Myth Wukong. Sorry, best action game. Black Myth Wukong, Black Ops 6, Helldivers 2, Stellar Blade, Space Marine 2. Good games in there.
best action game. Did you say was the category?
Yeah.
Space Marine.
Cool.
Space Marine
No, that's good.
in that category. I think Black Ops is great, but I don't think it's the best action game of the year. Action game,
Yeah.
I think of Gears of War, but I think action game.
Yeah,
I
but
think
it's
yeah.
tough if there's not a better category for Black Ops 6 to be in. I think it should probably win best multiplayer game, but I know Helldivers is in there, so
I
that's a
think
bit
because
tricky.
Helldivers getting multiplayer makes sense to me. Space Marine getting action game, I think, is the
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
yeah. Let me actually.
And
My tablet crashed. I'm gonna just pull up the nominations on my phone, so I've got them here as well.
yeah, and Black Myth Wukong had a bit of a rough launch, so although I think it could have been up for consideration, I think it might miss out based on that. Do you want to see best VR? Have you played
No,
anything VR
I'm
this
not.
year?
I'm
Okay.
not in that space at all.
Best
So
mobile game we can skip. Best indie game. I'll go
debut
through it
indie
because
game.
you've played some indie. Best
Yeah,
debut indie game. Animal Well, Balatro, Manor Lords, Pacific Drive, The Plucky Squire.
I love Plucky
Balatro, I
Squire,
think we'll guess
but
it.
again, recency bias. I think Balatro's going to get it. I do. I think
Yeah,
that is.
I'd like
I've
Manor
heard,
Lords to get it. I can't wait to play Manor Lords. It looks so good, but I think it's PC only still at the moment.
okay.
Um,
Um,
Pacific
I
Drive, I don't know,
yeah,
or Animal Well, I don't know enough about.
I don't know Manlords. I still have to look at that. But Balatro, I've had so many people that I follow, like Easy Allies, my friend Johnny, some
Yeah,
people that I really trust with their taste have talked about that a lot. So
but it is from what I understand a very simple game. So I
yes,
think it's up for Game of the Year possibly. I don't know how I feel about that, but best debut indie game seems fair enough. Um, best independent game:
yep.
Animal Well, Balatro, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, Neva, UFO 50. I mean, I haven't heard of any of those
I'm
except for Balatro.
I'm familiar with Neva, so I'm going to put my vote there because it was from the same developer that made Grease, or Gris. Grease. I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
Oh, Griff. Yeah, I
GRIS.
don't. Yeah, I know that.
And
Yeah.
fabulous little indie game that really kind of like a Firewatch kind of just got its hooks in me and
Oh,
got me.
cool.
Really cool world
Is it
yeah.
multi-platform or PC
Yes, it
only?
is multi-platform.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
So Never, I think, is going to be. From what I've seen of it, it was on my list of like I wanted to pick it up in a sale,
Haven't
and
they sent it to you, Devolver?
I didn't get Never. No, I didn't get Never because I'm
Oh,
normally
well.
in there with Devolver, but I didn't get that one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not on this one.
I want to read your review of it.
Yeah, that'd be a fun one to revisit. I think for sure. Um, Big Manny coming into the chat. I've seen a lot of UFO 50. It's really cool. Oh, nice. I'm not familiar with
I
that
need to
at
have a
all. So
look.
that's good to know.
Yeah.
Now, best
Best.
community support. Well, do they still have best ongoing game? Yeah, they do.
Yeah, that's the next one up. So, but best community support: Baldur's Gate 3, Final Fantasy 14, Fortnite, Helldivers 2, No Man's Sky.
So I think just because of the sheer volume of updates and how well they've supported it, that should be No Man's Sky. Best community support. And then I would put
This year though, has there been
oh yeah,
like I know they are still supporting it, but
there've been
I
several major
I thought
updates for that.
Helldivers had really good support.
I'd put that as best ongoing game.
See, this is where some like when you don't even have an FPS category, you've got like action as a whole category,
Yeah.
and then you've got best community support and best ongoing game, which are the same thing, surely.
So I think the way I would look at it in terms of, because like I agree, there's a huge amount of crossover there. I look at community support as like how well you communicate with your community over issues, how quickly you address things. Ongoing game is the actual
Content
content,
and stuff.
is the DLC, is the
Yeah, I guess so.
It's flimsy and there's huge crossover, but I think if we're going to draw a line, I think that's the cleanest way to do it.
I would personally, if I was them, I would have like best developer or something.
Yeah,
As a category, and then you'd go for Larian or something if you loved the way they talk to their fans and stuff. I just best community, well, whatever. Games for Impact is an interesting one. Closer the Distance, which I'm not familiar with. Indica, There's Never Again. Life is Strange, Tenuous Saga, Hellblade 2, Tales of Kunzera, which I know had an interesting story behind it.
I think Life is Strange deserves the love for that. I think just because of the kind of storytelling they have, that that they are pushing boundaries and they are trying to make people sort of really think. And I think that
I don't think Hellblade does enough differently to the first game to.
Agreed.
I mean, maybe you could say the same for Life is Strange because the first games or the other games in the series have sort of similar messages, but Tales of Kunzera had a rough time. I think it was actually quite a good game, but just didn't sell particularly well.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice for them to get something, but I'd be surprised. Innovation in accessibility, I don't think we know enough about.
No, but I do know that Diablo has done a lot of work around that at launch. Sorry, just 2 seconds. Just sort out my cat.
Sure. Yeah. So the next one is best performance, which is a good one. Brianna White, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Hannah Tell, Life is Strange. Humbly Gonzalez, Star Wars Outlaws. Luke Roberts, Silent Hill 2. Melina Jurgens, Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2. There's some really good, definitely some really good performances in there. I need to play Life is Strange again. It's on my Christmas list, so difficult to say until I've seen it.
Looking at that, I really liked what the main character in Star Wars Outlaws, how they presented themselves in the trailers, and I'm looking forward to getting to the game.
Too.
That is going to be a sale purchase for me. I think Humbly Gonzalez or Luke Roberts, I think Silent Hill 2, I've heard that the performance in that game was outstanding. So that
I do think
that stands out.
I do think Hellblade 2 as well could win that, because that if you're looking at the other than graphics,
is it just the performance? She is quite something, isn't she? She's remarkable.
Yeah.
Then we've got best audio design: Astrobot, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Senua's Saga, and Silent Hill 2. I'd give that to Senua. I think that is resoundingly.
If it's going to win anything, I think
that'll be it.
It's got a good chance there.
Yeah, agreed. Best score. I'm not hugely familiar with the music in these games. How's Metaphor sounding?
It's fantastic. So we've got Astrobot, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Metaphor, Silent Hill 2, Stellar Blade. Metaphor, the music is just incredible, and like people who've played Atlas games will know what to expect. And also the menu sounds and stuff. The sound effects in the actual game, striking sword and stuff isn't really where it's at, but it's the kind of incidental sound. So I could see Silent Hill 2 also being really good, just from a horror game perspective. But I'd have to say Metaphor just on my attachment to it.
Yeah, nice. Follow up now with best art direction: Astrobot, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erd Tree, Metaphor, ReFantazio, and Never. I'm going with Never, just because I think it really struck me visually. And it's nice. I'm so surprised actually how much that's got, how many votes that's gotten in terms of its nominations. I think it's really cool to see that game break out of just its indie categories.
Considering I'd not seen it reported on at all. So yeah, I'll be looking it up after this, and UFO 50 as well. Best narrative: Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Metaphor, ReFantazio. It's up for a lot. Hellblade 2 also up for quite a lot. Silent Hill 2. I mean, I wouldn't say Hellblade. Metaphor, I've not got far enough in, but I probably wouldn't go for that. either. Difficult to say Silent Hill 2 because it's a remake, but
Yeah, same with Final Fantasy. So maybe Like a Dragon. Give that some.
yeah.
Because I've seen that pop up a couple of times. That'd be a good opportunity for them to scoop an
I
award.
mean, I am engrossed in metaphor, and considering it's not my genre, I think that probably says something about the
Mm.
quality of the writing and the story. But yeah, hopefully it will win at least one category. Yeah, here we're getting to the final two now. Best game direction: Astrobot, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring DLC, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Metaphor ReFantazio. This is also it is identical to Game of the Year,
Yeah,
including the nomination. So what's the point? You would look at that as the panel and you'd say, why have we even got this category?
yeah. I think if you're gonna pick one from here, I think Astrobot gets it.
For both?
No, for best
Or
direction.
okay, okay.
So I
Yeah,
think
no, I agree because I think the way they've handled the nostalgia and the making the most of the PS5's features
features.
is so
That
clever.
I think yeah, and that they've turned something that was ostensibly a tech demo into a fully fledged world
Yeah,
and game and giving it its own identity. I don't particularly like the visual design of it, particularly just in terms of preference, but what they've created as a concept, that is quite a vision that someone has executed there, and that's where I think that's where you could maybe justify, like, say if this was 2023, I'd want Alan Wake 2 to get best direction or best narrative, and I think it did actually win best narrative at the Game Awards last
but
year.
you'd want Alan Wake 2 to get Game of the Year though.
Well, that's because Alan Wake 2, because it is. But Game of the Year now. I haven't played any of these. It's really tough when I
Oh
haven't played
shit!
any of the nominees. Um,
I can't believe you haven't played Astrobot.
uh, yeah, low stakes. I'm not that invested in PlayStation. You know, I know I've got the Pro, but I was a PlayStation gamer from PS3 onwards, so I don't have that history with it.
I
Um,
I think we both feel as though Shadow of the Erdtree shouldn't be up for Game of the Year.
yeah,
So I think well, it would be wrong for us to say that should get it. I think if
create
that
a
was Elden
DLC
Ring,
category.
yeah,
That's what they need to do.
if that was Elden Ring
Sorry.
as a whole, then it probably deserves it. Um, it's going to be tough. Like Balatro stands a chance, I think.
Yeah.
But again, I've seen people saying because it's like it's a small game, but really nice to see an indie game up for the award. I know like Cocoon won a lot. I don't know if it won at the Game Awards, but it won a lot of website Game of the Year awards.
Yes.
It's nice to see an indie in the
You know,
list.
seeing that, Never in there too, which is really great. So, Big Manny, I
I
really
could
love
see
Shadow of the
Astro.
Tree, sorry, but it definitely shouldn't be in this category. I agree. Yep, I agree with
Yeah,
you.
but it needs its own category. But like maybe for a huge DLC, which it is, it needs to be up for consideration in more than just maybe it's doing a disservice if it's just in a DLC category. But then for it to be game, it's not a game, is it? It's not Game of the Year. So
Mm.
um, I think I don't know how many people that will put off. I could see it being between Astrobot or Balatro.
Okay.
I don't know if Black Myth Wukong has cut through enough.
To get the
Um,
vote.
yeah,
Interesting.
and
Well, I mean, look,
I don't hear enough people talking about Final Fantasy VII.
we'll definitely do
Um,
a sort of an unpack leading up to the Game Awards, perhaps a sort of bets and dreams, our hopes and dreams that we hope
yeah,
to see there. Our bets and dreams format is always one of our favourite things that we do when there's a big showcase coming up. So that'll about wrap it up now for System Link. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We will see you next time, this Saturday, 9:15, cooking up some online gameplay. Didn't know what I was going to say there, so I had to vamp it. Not sure what we're going to play, never do, but we'll let you know, obviously, in our usual social channels. Mike, where can people find you online?
TheXboxGuide.com, at the Xbox Guide on Threads, and at the Xbox Guide on YouTube.
Fabulous. Thanks again, everyone. Hope you have a good rest of your week, and we'll catch up with you this Saturday. We'll see you next time.
See ya.